Title: The White Custodian. Part 1: The Awakening. The White Custodian begins with Daniel Whitaker, a white anthropologist from Wales, arriving in a quiet village near the sacred Nyame forest in Ghana. He is there to study African folklore, but soon finds himself chosen by the ancient gods as their new custodian to protect sacred knowledge and rituals. This unexpected choice sparks conflict within the village, particularly with Kojo, a local man who feels entitled to the role and resents Daniel for being an outsider. Daniel experiences strange dreams and signs that indicate the gods are communicating with him. During a sacred festival, he falls into a trance and speaks the words of the first priest of the Nyame line, confirming his selection by the gods. The villagers are outraged, believing a foreigner cannot uphold their ancient ways. Nana Yaa, the last priestess, defends Daniel, stating that the gods chose him for his heart and humility rather than his bloodline. Under Nana Yaa's strict guidance, Daniel learns the rituals, dances, sacrifices, and stories of the village. He begins to dream the lives of the ancestors, experiencing their memories and understanding the depth of the cultural heritage he is now a part of. Flashbacks reveal how much knowledge has been lost during colonization. Kojo, furious and jealous, leads a faction to denounce Daniel. They threaten violence, but when a sacred relic disappears and a drought threatens the land, the gods challenge the people to a spiritual test. Daniel must undergo the ancient trial of memory in the Forest of Echoes, where he meets ancestral spirits who judge his worthiness. Synopsis: in a quiet village nestled at the edge of the sacred Nyame forest, the ancient gods of Africa are awakening once more. For centuries their voices have been fading, drowned by modernity, forgotten rituals, and scattered descendants. With the last of the spiritual guardians dying without an heir, the gods must choose a new conservator to protect the sacred knowledge and carry the rituals forward. But when the gods speak in the ancestral tongue beneath the baobab tree, they do not call a son of the soil. They choose Daniel Whitaker, a white anthropologist from Wales, who came seeking to study oral traditions, and ends up entangled in a legacy he never asked for. Main characters: Daniel Whitaker, minus a reserved, deeply curious Welsh researcher, who has spent years studying African folklore. He arrives in the village to study Kwaku Ananse stories, but finds something deeper. Nana Yaa Adubea, minus the village's last priestess, a fierce and spiritual woman in her 90 seconds. Nana Yaa was born in the village near the sacred Nyame forest, a place where the ancient gods of Africa whispered through the trees and the river carried the songs of ancestors. From a young age she was drawn to the spiritual world, often found sitting by the river, listening to the water's secrets. Her mother, a respected healer, recognized Nana Yaa's unique connection to the gods and began teaching her the sacred rituals and stories. At the age of 15, Nana Yaa experienced a profound loss when her sister was swallowed by the river during a storm. That night, she dreamed of drums and a man with no eyes standing where the water turned black. This vision marked the beginning of her calling as the village's priestess. Despite the villagers' initial skepticism, Nana Yaa's wisdom and spiritual strength soon earned her their respect. Throughout her life, Nana Yaa witnessed the impact of colonization on her village. She saw sacred knowledge being lost and rituals forgotten as foreign powers imposed their ways. Determined to preserve her heritage, she became a fierce guardian of the village's traditions, mentoring the young and ensuring the gods' voices were never silenced. Now in her 90 seconds, Nana Yaa is the last priestess of the village. Her eyes, pale with cataract, seem to look through people rather than at them. She recognizes the god's choice in Daniel Whitaker and mentors him despite the villagers' outrage. Nana Yaa's past is a testament to resilience, wisdom, and the enduring power of cultural heritage. Kojo was born in the village near the sacred Nyame forest, a place where the ancient gods of Africa whispered through the trees and the river carried the songs of ancestors. From a young age, Kojo was drawn to the spiritual world, often found sitting by the river, listening to the water's secrets. His father, a respected elder, recognized Kojo's unique connection to the gods and began teaching him the sacred rituals and stories. At the age of 8, Kojo experienced a profound loss when his mother passed away during a storm. That night he dreamed of drums and a man with no eyes standing where the water turned black. This vision marked the beginning of his calling as the village's spiritual guardian. Despite the villagers' initial skepticism, Kojo's dedication and spiritual strength soon earned him their respect. Throughout his life, Kojo witnessed the impact of colonization on his village. He saw sacred knowledge being lost and rituals forgotten as foreign powers imposed their ways. Determined to preserve his heritage, he became a fierce guardian of the village's traditions, mentoring the young and ensuring the gods' voices were never silenced. Kojo's resentment towards Daniel Whitaker stemmed from his belief that he should have been chosen as the custodian. He felt entitled to the role and resented Daniel for being an outsider. This internal conflict in moments of vulnerability made Kojo a complex and relatable character. Kojo's internal conflict is further exacerbated by his feelings of inadequacy and jealousy. He has dedicated his life to preserving the village's traditions and feels that his efforts should have been recognized by the gods. The choice of Daniel, a foreigner, as the custodian challenges Kojo's sense of identity and purpose. He struggles with the idea that the gods chose someone who does not share his bloodline or cultural heritage. Kojo's actions, including leading a faction against Daniel and summoning dark forces, are driven by his desire to prove his worthiness and reclaim what he believes is rightfully his. His internal conflict is a central theme in the story, highlighting the tension between tradition and change, and the struggle for acceptance and belonging. The ancestors minus deities and ancestral spirits like Nyame, Ananse, and Esi Ketewa. They appear in visions, dreams, and during rituals. Let's ride on. Chapter 1. The Whisper Beneath the Baobab. The first time Daniel heard the voice, it wasn't through words, but through the ancient rustling of the baobab leaves. In a quiet village nestled at the edge of the sacred Nyame forest, the ancient gods of Africa are awakening once more. For centuries, their voices have been fading, drowned by modernity, forgotten rituals, and scattered descendants. With the last of the spiritual guardians dying without an heir, the gods must choose a new conservator to protect the sacred knowledge and carry the rituals forward. Shobaroni! A voice called out behind him, teasing but not unkind. Daniel turned to see Nana Yaa Adubia walking toward him, wrapped in faded kente cloth, her cane tapping rhythm into the earth. Her eyes, pale with cataract, seemed to look through him rather than at him. "When you keep staring at that tree as if it will recite the tales for you," she said in Twi-accented English. "Perhaps it already has," Daniel replied with a small smile. Nana Yaa chuckled, deep and throaty. "That tree only speaks to those who've buried something beneath it." Daniel tapped his notebook thoughtfully. "Honor those who are meant to dig something up." The old woman stopped beside him and placed a hand on the baobab. Her fingers, dark and wrinkled, rested gently on the bark like one might touch the shoulder of a sleeping child. "And you have their attention," she said, barely above a whisper. "Who?" "The ones who remember, the ones who watch." Daniel hesitated. "You mean the ancestors?" Nana Yaa tilted her head. "When the ancestors, the gods, the stories that walk when no one listens. They have watched many centuries pass, and now, for some reason I do not yet understand, they are watching you." A chill danced up Daniel's spine. He looked at her, not sure whether to laugh or bow. "And I'm just here to study the old tales. I never meant to intrude. Some came to observe. But the forest sees more than eyes. It listens to hearts." She began to walk away, but stopped after a few paces. "Tonight, when you sleep, do not be afraid if you dream in a tongue you do not know." And then she left him, alone with the baobab, the whispering wind, and a strange thrum in his chest he couldn't explain. That night, as crickets sang under the Ghanaian stars, Daniel dreamed of drums. Not the plastic ones in university archives, but wooden blood-warmed ones beaten by hands older than time. He saw fire, masks, a man with no eyes standing beside a river that reflected the moon but no stars. When he awoke, heart pounding and breath short, 3 words lingered on his lips. He didn't know their meaning, but he wrote them down anyway. E for woe. We are calling you. Chapter 2, Drums in the Smoke. The rooster crowed thrice before dawn, but Daniel was already awake, sitting on the edge of his thin mattress in the guest compound, scribbling furiously by lantern light. The words still pulsed in his mind, Efrawo. He rubbed his temples and glanced down at the open notebook, filled with fragmented notes. Minus river with no stars. Minus man with no eyes. Minus drumbeat patterns, non-Western rhythms. Minus speaking in tongues. He shut the book. Outside, the village was stretching awake. Smoke rose lazily from cooking fires, and the scent of burning plantain leaves drifted in with the morning breeze. Chickens pecked at the red dust as women began their day with water-fetching songs. Daniel stepped out quietly and made his way toward Nana Yaa's hut. The elder was already seated beneath the ancient awning of woven palm, surrounded by small bowls of shea nuts, herbs, and a carved wooden staff crowned with cowrie shells. She gave a dry chuckle. "Oh no, child, you were visited." He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. Sighed, "I don't understand. Why me? You think the gods pick with a ballot box? They choose whom they will. Man, woman, black, white, even stone sometimes." She leaned back, her milky eyes narrowing. "But they rarely pick twice." Daniel frowned. "Nana Yaa, I came to learn, to document. I'm not a believer. I don't even speak Twi fluently. I'm not from here." She suddenly struck the ground with her staff, sharp enough to make a passing goat bleat and run. "Neither were the first griots," she snapped. "When the first griots were travelers, nomads, spirit-bearers. Memory doesn't care for passports, and neither do the gods." Daniel blinked, stunned into silence. Nana Yaa's tone softened. She motioned for a carved stool and gestured for him to sit. "You think I was born knowing all this?" she asked. "A sign I was 15 when the river swallowed my sister, the same river you saw. My mother wailed, and the village called it bad luck. But that night, I too dreamed of drums. And a man with no eyes, standing where the water turns black. Daniel looked up, heart racing. That was in my dream. She nodded slowly. And he is the gatekeeper, the one who marks the chosen. Marks? Nana Yaa took Daniel's wrist gently and turned it palm up. When you fell asleep, did it burn here? A small spot, red, barely noticeable, tingled at the center of his palm. A crescent shape, almost like a half moon, was faintly visible under the skin. He hadn't noticed it before. It will fade and return as they guide you, she whispered. This is not colonial madness. This is older than empire, older than the name Africa itself. Sunchi, stop asking questions with your mouth and start listening with your spirit. She rose with surprising strength and tossed a pinch of crushed kola nut into the morning fire. Smoke curled upward, forming thin, delicate tendrils. Nut Festival of the Three Paths is in 7 days, she said. When the gods chose you, the people will not easily. You must earn their eyes. And with that, she turned and entered her hut, leaving Daniel staring into the rising smoke, where, for a brief moment, he swore he saw the outline of the man with no eyes. Chapter 3: The Fire Beneath Kojo's Feet. Kojo's hands were stained red with dust as he struck the final stone into place, finishing the new shrine wall near the old mango grove. Sweat dripped down his temple, but he didn't mind. The work steadied his thoughts. Better than pacing, better than arguing with the elders again. The gods had made a mistake, or someone had misheard them. How could it be him? A white man? Kojo stood, stretched his back, and glanced toward the distant compound where Daniel Whitaker was staying. A strange flicker of resentment lit his chest like dry kindling. All his life he had served. He had danced the sacred steps from the age of 6. He had fasted during the Harmattan when no one asked him to. He had memorized the ancient chants from Nana Yaa's scrolls when the other boys were chasing girls near the stream. It was his time. He kicked a loose stone, sending it tumbling into the nearby bush. A small lizard darted out, startled, disappearing into the underbrush. Kojo? A voice called behind him. He turned. It was Abena, his cousin. Her head was wrapped in blue, a basket balanced neatly on her hip. Oh, you're working too hard again, she said, smiling carefully. He said nothing, wiping his face with the edge of his cloth. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. And say the white man is dreaming in Twi? Kojo snorted. He can dream in gold if he wants. That won't make him a son of the land. Abena sighed. And gods choose strangely sometimes. Then perhaps the gods have forgotten what our people bled to preserve, Kojo snapped. While his ancestors were burning our shrines and carrying our drums away, we stayed. We endured. Abena looked away, the smile fading. Maybe the gods are asking us to endure again, in a different way. He turned to her fully, his voice low but tight. See, if they wanted a custodian, they should have looked in the mirror, not across the ocean. The words hung in the air between them. Abena reached into her basket and pulled out a small calabash wrapped in cloth. And Nana Yaa sent this. For your dreams. And I don't need her herbs, he muttered. Kojo, she said softly, almost pleading. He took the calabash, but didn't thank her. As she walked away, he looked toward the forest line. Thunderclouds were gathering behind the baobabs, though no rain had been forecast. He walked to the shrine wall and knelt. And great ones, he whispered, eyes closed. If I am unworthy, strike me with silence. But if your voice has been misheard, show me. I will carry your will even when others mock it. I will not let your memory be worn like a tourist's necklace. A gust of wind brushed the back of his neck. He waited. But the gods said nothing. Chapter 4, Eyes That Do Not Blink. Daniel stood in the center of the village square, the weight of 1,000 eyes pressed upon him like wet cloth. Children peeked from behind their mothers' wrappers. Elders sat beneath woven canopies, their faces carved in the same solemn stillness as the ancestral masks mounted behind them. The square was ringed with folded arms, tight jaws, skeptical brows. Some looked curious. Many looked furious, and all of them were waiting. Nana Yaa stepped forward, flanked by 2 drummers. Her staff thudded against the earth 3 times, silencing even the birds. She stood tall, unbowed by age, wrapped in deep indigo and gold. "Let it be known," she began, her voice cutting cleanly through the hush, "and the gods have spoken." Murmurs swelled, a few scoffs. One man stood and shook his head before sitting again. Daniel shifted nervously beside her. Nana Yaa turned slightly, her hand gesturing toward him. "Sinis is the one who received the mark, the one who dreamed in the tongue of the ancestors, the one who was called beneath the baobab." Daniel tried not to flinch as all eyes turned to him. "So I know what this looks like," he began, his voice quiet but steady. "So I am not from here. I did not ask for this. But the gods did not ask for permission. They only chose." A woman near the front spat on the ground. "When we are not orphans, Nana, why bring in a stranger to carry our bloodlines?" An old man beside her muttered, "Insane British scholar, how poetic. They stole our shrines. Now they return to wear them." Nana Yaa raised her hand sharply, silencing them again. "Also you speak of blood. But what of spirit? Do you think the gods are blind to color, to history? Do you not remember they once chose a child born during war? Or the mute girl whose voice returned only when she spoke to Nyame himself?" The murmurs softened, not vanishing, just shrinking, curling into confusion and pride. She turned to Daniel and nodded once. It was time. Daniel stepped forward to the small stool placed in the center of the square. He had memorized the words all week, practicing until his throat went dry and his accent stopped stumbling. Now, under the blazing sun, he took a breath and began to chant, "Ankasa, wife for woe, Kiemia onte da, E-E-O-O-O." The language rolled out of him smooth and rich. His voice didn't shake. The air around the square seemed to still. The old priestess closed her eyes. Daniel continued, invoking the names of the forgotten gods. Esikatewa of the rain drum, Idade the iron voice, and Wura the flame beneath soil, names not spoken aloud for decades. When he finished, there was silence. Even the children were still. And then, from behind the elders, a sudden crack of thunder split the sky. No clouds, no storm, just one loud, defiant clap of sound. Daniel's chest rose and fell. Nana Yaa stepped forward once more, her voice low but final. "If the gods have answered." Chapter 5, The Quiet Rebellion. He stood at the edge of the square like a statue, arms folded, face unreadable. Around him, villagers whispered, some awestruck, others shaken. But he heard only one thing, loud and clear. They're accepting him. Kojo turned and walked away, jaw tight. That night, under the shadow of the abandoned grain storehouse, Kojo struck a match and lit a small lantern. The flame flickered, casting his silhouette onto the mud wall behind him. One by one, 3 others joined him in the dark. Mensa, a former apprentice of Nana Yaa, bitter ever since she dismissed him for speaking carelessly during a ritual. Ebo, Kojo's childhood friend, quiet and sharp-eyed. Kojo greeted them with a nod. No words yet. Not until the door was shut and the night held them completely. We've all seen it, he began. When the gods may speak, but we are not cattle. We do not follow just because thunder claps. Mensa spat on the dirt. Said I said it the moment he arrived. They coddled him. Let him sit near the shrine, a stranger among the sacred. Kofi folded his arms. The gods may have spoken, but even they can be tested. Were we not told that trickster Ananse once fooled even Yame? Kojo nodded. Exactly. What if the dream wasn't pure? What if Nana Yaa misread the sign, or worse, manipulated it? Ibo, who had remained silent, finally spoke. What do you want to do? We need to prove he's not the one. That the gods did not choose him with full knowledge. There is a test, older than the festival of the three paths, a trial by memory, the labyrinth of echoes. Mensa sucked in air through his teeth. If you want him to walk that, if he truly belongs, Kojo said, eyes gleaming, she will survive. If not, the spirits will strip the mark from his soul. And if he refuses? Kofi asked. Kojo's voice dropped to a whisper. Then the people will know he's a fraud. And if that doesn't break him, we find other ways. The flame in the lantern danced higher, casting shadows on the wall. Shadows that looked, for a brief second, like figures from ancient times. Watchers, witnesses. Kojo didn't blink. TS wasn't rebellion. It was restoration. Part 2 is next.